Why was everyone avoiding her at the briefing table? The room smelled of stale coffee and gun oil, the fluorescent lights humming like a low-grade alarm. Her uniform was pressed, her boots polished, but it didn't matter. Eyes slid past her. Not exactly hostility, not exactly ignorance, more like she was invisible. The kind of invisibility that made you wonder if you existed at all. She kept her hands folded on the table, listening to the colonel drone on about tactical advantages and mission protocols. Words blurred. Every syllable was a reminder of the obedience she had been trained to embrace. She had obeyed every order, every drill, every silent night spent alone in the cold, tracing the faint memory of her father's last words. Never let them see fear, not even a flicker. Her name was Lieutenant Mara Kessler, 27 years old. She had flown combat missions over deserts and mountains, pulled countless nights on reconnaissance, and had aimed her rifle at targets she could never unsee. Yet tonight, even obedience couldn't silence her resolve. She glanced around. Everyone else was scribbling notes, nodding to briefings, laughing quietly at jokes that landed like bullets in a dry trench. She remembered the first time she felt this kind of isolation, a training exercise during sniper school. Everyone else had paired up and she had been left alone on the ridge. At first, she had thought it was a mistake. Later, she realized it was deliberate. They wanted to see if she would break. If she would beg for someone else's presence, for someone else's validation. She hadn't. Not then, not ever. Her mind shifted back to the present. The mission was still shrouded in layers of secrecy, the kind that made intelligence officers nervous and field operatives restless. Something about the target didn't add up. She felt it in her bones, the same way a soldier feels before a storm breaks, the air heavy, charged, warning. "You'll insert at 300 hours," the colonel said, eyes sweeping the room like a hawk. "Extraction is at 600, minimal contact, keep it clean, no deviations." She could hear the weight behind "no deviations." Not because it was risky, but because no one knew what she knew, and if she acted differently, it could ruin everything. Her mind drifted to her brother, Alex. They had grown up in a small town where discipline was not taught but demanded. Alex had been reckless, brilliant in fits of fury and laughter alike. Mara had been the shadow, the quiet one, absorbing every lesson the world threw at them. When Alex was gone, gone before she even enlisted, she had carried the guilt like a physical weight. It wasn't fear that drove her now, it was responsibility. The kind of responsibility that would not tolerate hesitation. She felt a sudden pressure in her chest, a sharp, metallic taste in her mouth. Anxiety? No, it was determination, layered with grief and silent fury. The colonel's words continued to echo in the room, but she was already elsewhere, imagining the desert, the concrete buildings, the silence before chaos. She imagined herself standing at the edge of a rooftop, wind whipping through her hair, the scope of her rifle reflecting the first glint of dawn. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. A secret that made her heart beat faster with fear and hope in equal measure. She couldn't voice it here, not now. Too many ears, too much risk. She had to wait, watch, and choose the right moment. Her team was assembling in hushed clusters, checking gear, adjusting straps, murmuring brief reassurances. She noticed one young medic, barely out of basic, fidgeting with a tourniquet. His hands shook slightly. She could see the fear in his eyes, raw, unguarded, human. Mara wanted to tell him it would be okay, but she didn't. Not everyone could be saved, and tonight might prove it. The flight to the insertion point was quiet. The rotors of the helicopter thumped against the night, a hypnotic rhythm that matched her pulse. She watched the darkness below, stretching endlessly, broken only by tiny glimmers of light from distant towns or roads. Her stomach churned, not from nerves but from anticipation. She had trained for every scenario, rehearsed every contingency. Yet this one felt different, personal, dangerous, necessary. She thought about her father again, about the look in his eyes the night she left for the academy. Pride, fear, hope, all tangled together in that brief glance that had said more than any words could. She swallowed hard. It was strange how memory could anchor you while the world moved, how loss could sharpen every decision. Her team's chatter faded as she slipped her headset on, adjusting the microphone. A small voice crackled in her ear, the medic whispering something to the navigator about rations. Mara smiled faintly. That was the sound of life persisting, no matter how fragile. They reached the drop zone. The night was unnervingly still. Sand shifted under boots as they moved, every step calculated, deliberate. The mission briefing felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else's life. Here in the desert, there was only the present, only shadows and tension, only the fragile line between obedience and conviction. She crouched behind a low wall, the cold seeping through her gloves. Every sound was amplified, the distant hum of a generator, the soft click of a weapon being readied, her own breath. Her pulse thrummed in her ears, steady, controlled, but behind it was a storm she could not quell. Her inner voice whispered questions she could not answer aloud. What if I fail? What if I let them down? What if I act on instinct rather than protocol? Obedience had been her shield, her compass, her survival tool. But tonight it felt like chains, chains she could not bear to wear. The first guard appeared in the distance, silhouetted against the faint glow of a city that didn't yet know she was coming. Mara's finger hovered over the trigger, not with fear, but with the intimate understanding of what had to happen. The weight of responsibility settled like armor around her. She wasn't just executing a mission. She was delivering justice, perhaps the only kind she could ever truly control. And then she saw it, movement out of sync, shadows bending in ways they shouldn't. Her instincts screamed. The mission parameters blurred in her mind. Her heartbeat raced. Every ounce of training told her to wait, obey, follow procedure. Yet another voice, quieter but more insistent, demanded action. She made a choice, silent, swift, precise. The night held its breath. Her team hadn't noticed yet. The guard collapsed quietly, unseen. Mara's chest rose and fell, a controlled rhythm disguising the surge of adrenaline and relief. She crouched lower, eyes scanning the dark horizon. Each moment was a fragile victory, each step a testament to resilience, to silent strength. Her mind wandered briefly to Alex again. She imagined telling him she had finally taken control, not through orders, not through rules, but through resolve. She imagined his grin, that wild, crooked smile. And for the first time that night, she allowed herself a fragment of hope. Sometimes, she realized, obedience wasn't enough. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The wind whispered across the sand, carrying with it the faint scent of something burning, an unspoken warning or a promise of what was to come. Mara's eyes hardened. Tonight, she would learn which. And as she melted into the shadows, unseen but fully present, the desert seemed to acknowledge her resolve, a silent witness to the quiet force of a soldier who had learned that sometimes survival required more than following orders. Sometimes it required a heart that refused to be silent. Why had the wind shifted? Mara noticed it first. A subtle change, almost imperceptible, carrying the faint scent of dust and something acrid, maybe smoke, maybe metal. She froze, every muscle taut. The desert was alive in ways most didn't hear. Every grain of sand, every ripple of shadow told a story. And tonight it was whispering a warning. Her team moved ahead, a blur of shapes in the darkness, following the carefully plotted route. They didn't see what she saw. She didn't speak, couldn't. Her silence wasn't arrogance. It was necessity. If she spoke, even a whisper, the thread of control she held over the unfolding mission could unravel in an instant. Mara's eyes lingered on the horizon, tracing the faint outline of the compound they were approaching. Nothing about it looked like the intel suggested. The walls were higher, more fortified, and the guards different, experienced, calculated. She swallowed. The thought of deviation from the plan shouldn't have scared her. It usually thrilled her. But tonight the stakes felt personal. She remembered her mother's voice, soft and chiding when Mara had first announced her plans to enlist. "You think you're brave, but bravery isn't enough," her mother had said. Mara had laughed, the laughter brittle, masking fear. She hadn't understood then. Now she did. Bravery wasn't enough. Not in war, not in life, and certainly not tonight. The medic stumbled slightly behind her, and Mara instinctively reached out, guiding him back to the narrow path carved between low dunes. His eyes flickered up at her, grateful and fearful all at once. Mara didn't reply. Words were unnecessary. She knew the language of presence, the silent bond between soldiers. They approached the perimeter. Sensors were rumored to be minimal, cameras sporadic, guards relying more on instinct than technology. Mara studied the compound like a predator reading the terrain. Every shadow, every flicker of light, every whisper of movement was a clue. Her heart thumped, not with fear but anticipation. She had trained for this, for years, yet she couldn't shake the sense that tonight the rules had shifted. A sudden click, soft, deliberate, she froze, listening. The sound was so slight she almost doubted it existed. Then again, a shadow moved against the faint glow of the perimeter lights. She adjusted her position, feeling the familiar weight of her rifle against her shoulder. Not yet. Wait. Observation first. Her mind wandered briefly to Alex, to the reckless energy he had carried like a flame. How easily it had burned out. How easily a single misstep in life could leave a crater where dreams once were. Mara had always been careful, precise, obedient. And yet, that obedience had created gaps, regrets, shadows that now haunted her in the quiet hours. The guard appeared again, emerging from the dark corridor between two buildings. Mara's finger hovered, but she didn't shoot. Instead, she noted his gait, the slight limp, the way he adjusted the strap on his weapon. Human, vulnerable. He was not aware of the threat in the sand behind him. She felt a pang, not of sympathy exactly, but of recognition. Every soldier was a story, some written in silence, some in screams. Her heartbeat slowed as the rest of the team approached, their voices hushed through headsets. The navigator whispered coordinates, the medic confirmed readiness, the communications officer murmured updates. All routine, but Mara noticed the subtle hesitation in the medic's voice, a tremor that spoke of doubt, of fear, of life still clinging desperately. She respected that. Life was precious. Every choice tonight might take some of it away. The insertion went smoothly at first. They slipped through the perimeter with practiced ease, shadows blending into shadows, each step measured. And yet Mara felt eyes on them, unseen, unknown. The kind of awareness that didn't announce itself with a sound or a shadow. She couldn't shake it, not for a second. They reached the first checkpoint, an old guard tower, abandoned, yet somehow menacing in its quiet stillness. Mara scanned the area, noting every crack in the walls, every abandoned footprint, every trace of life left behind. The desert was patient. It remembered, and tonight it seemed to remember more than she could comprehend. The team paused, whispered words exchanged, brief nods, brief gestures of reassurance. Mara felt their collective weight pressing on her, their unspoken fears bleeding through the thin fabric of professionalism. She didn't judge, she understood. Fear was not weakness. It was evidence of care, of life, of human presence in a world designed to strip both away. She moved first, the shadows swallowing her form. Every step was a negotiation between instinct and duty. A misstep could be fatal, yet she felt the strange exhilaration that only comes when a soldier is in complete control of her environment. She wasn't just executing orders tonight. She was choosing, deciding, acting, living. A noise, a faint shuffle, a whisper of fabric against stone. Mara froze, heart steady, mind alert. The others hadn't noticed, probably wouldn't unless it became obvious. She signaled silently, crouching, eyes tracing the path of the unseen intruder. The desert seemed to hold its breath. Her thoughts wandered again to Alex, to the life they might have had, to the laughter and arguments and reckless joy that had been stolen. She allowed herself a flicker of sorrow, a silent acknowledgement of the weight she carried, and then she pushed it aside. Now was not the time for grief. Now was the time for precision, for presence, for resolve. The intruder revealed themselves, a small figure moving too quickly, too deliberately. Mara's training took over. Observation, assessment, decision. The figure froze, and then recognition. A young boy no more than 14 caught between fear and duty carrying a weapon that was clearly too heavy for his frame. Mara's chest tightened. Her mind raced. Protocol dictated action. Humanity dictated hesitation. She lowered her weapon slightly, breathing carefully, assessing options. The boy hadn't seen her yet. He was a ghost in the desert, a fragment of tragedy she couldn't fix, yet one she could influence. Her finger hovered near the trigger, but she chose another path, slow, deliberate. Movement that would save, or at least delay, destruction. The boy's eyes met hers. A brief flash of recognition, fear mirrored, hope reflected. Mara's pulse thrummed in a way she hadn't felt before. Not adrenaline, not strategy, not anticipation, something deeper. Compassion, responsibility. A silent vow that no matter the mission, no matter the orders, she would act in accordance with the heart she had always carried beneath the uniform. The rest of the team passed unaware, following the designated path. Mara lingered, adjusting her position, guiding the boy away from patrol routes, whispering a soft, steadying command. Human connection. Small, fragile, yet profoundly powerful. When the team regrouped, Mara rejoined them without comment. No one asked, and she offered no explanation. Obedience would return for now, but the choice she had made, silent, invisible, moral, lingered in her mind, a quiet flame against the cold desert night. The mission had only begun, and yet, in this single act, she realized something vital. Courage wasn't just in facing bullets or following orders. Courage was sometimes in restraint, in choosing life over protocol, in acting with conscience when no one was watching. The desert stretched endlessly before them, dark and patient. Mara felt its quiet acknowledgement, a subtle nod to the resilience she carried. And for the first time she allowed herself a faint smile, fleeting, fragile, but wholly real. Sometimes, she realized, strength isn't shown in action. It's revealed in decisions that go unseen, choices that echo quietly, shaping who you are long after the night ends. The wind carried whispers of what was to come. Mara's eyes hardened, her resolve firm. The mission was far from over, but for now she had acted with dignity. She had acted with heart, and sometimes that was enough. Why had no one anticipated the silence? The desert wasn't empty. It never was. Mara had learned that long ago. Every shadow, every distant gust, every shifting grain of sand carried information. Tonight it whispered secrets that no one else heard. She crouched behind a low wall, rifle angled, senses stretched taut. Her team moved past her, confident, synchronized, but oblivious to the subtle shifts in the terrain. Mara's gaze lingered on a crumbling wall near the perimeter of the compound. Something didn't fit. A shadow too precise to be accidental, a faint metallic glint that didn't belong. She could feel it before she saw it, the presence of someone or something, observing. Her pulse was steady, trained, but underneath it throbbed the tension of anticipation. She had learned to control fear, to convert it into precision. But tonight, fear wasn't the enemy. Uncertainty was. Mara's mind drifted briefly to her father, a man who had loved order more than chaos. Control what you can, he'd said. Accept what you cannot. She repeated those words silently, over and over like a mantra. But control tonight was slippery, elusive, the kind that vanished in the shadows and returned only when she chose to act. She adjusted her scope, scanning the perimeter. Tiny movements betrayed life where there should have been none. The faint scrape of a boot, a whispered cough, the almost imperceptible exhale of someone hiding. Mara's fingers itched, not with the desire to pull a trigger but with the necessity to decide. Observation first, judgment second, action last. Her thoughts drifted to Alex again. He had been reckless, chaotic, impossible to restrain. Mara had tried to save him, failed. And that failure, like a scar beneath her uniform, informed every decision she made now. The mission wasn't just about orders, about protocol. It was about redemption. It was about proving in some small way that she could make choices that mattered, that she could act decisively with integrity. A faint whisper crackled in her earpiece. The navigator reporting coordinates, the medic confirming readiness. Routine, mundane. But the whisper also brought tension, the realization that time was slipping. The insertion window was shrinking. Every second they lingered increased risk. Mara shifted slightly, feeling the coarse sand beneath her palms, the chill of night creeping under her uniform. The intruder, too deliberate, too precise, was closer now. Mara noted every movement, every detail mattered, the limp, the way the figure adjusted their weapon, the subtle hesitation that betrayed inexperience. And then the realization hit her. Not a threat. A child, no more than 14. The weight of a weapon too heavy for his frame. Fear in his eyes mirrored in hers. Her chest tightened. Decisions crystallized in her mind. She could eliminate the risk. Protocol demanded it. Obedience required it, but humanity demanded restraint. And in that instant, Mara chose. Slowly, silently, she moved, guiding the boy away from patrol paths, positioning herself between him and danger. He froze, eyes wide, uncertain whether to trust the silent figure in the sand. Mara whispered, careful not to disturb the night's fragile balance. Not commands, not instructions, just guidance, presence, assurance. Her team passed unaware, footsteps muffled by sand, radios crackling faintly. The boy moved with her subtle direction, shadow to shadow, until he was clear of immediate danger. Mara exhaled softly, a release she didn't allow herself to acknowledge fully. She had acted, but silently, invisibly, unnoticed. The mission pressed forward. The compound loomed ahead, dark and imposing. Walls high, windows shuttered. Guards moving in patterns that were meticulous, practiced. Mara's pulse was steady, her focus sharp, but beneath it lay a quiet, gnawing tension. She remembered her mother's words again. Bravery isn't enough. Bravery was action. Courage was measured. Integrity was choice. And tonight she was discovering the difference firsthand. The team breached the outer perimeter. Mara moved with them, maintaining cover, eyes scanning, ears listening. The desert was alive with subtle cues, a shift in wind, the distant hum of generators, the soft scuff of boots. Every sound was a warning, every shadow a potential threat. A guard appeared unexpectedly, silhouette against the faint glow of the compound. Mara froze. He moved deliberately, unaware of her presence. Protocol would demand engagement. Experience demanded calculation. Humanity demanded observation. She chose again. Silence. Wait. The guard passed. Her finger relaxed on the trigger. The team advanced deeper, room by room, corridor by corridor. Mara's mind drifted briefly to Alex, to the reckless energy that had once defined him, to the lives lost and altered by moments of indecision, by choices unmade. Her movements were deliberate, precise, but underneath them pulsed the weight of memory. Every action, every pause, every decision was informed by loss. They reached the inner courtyard. Moonlight glinted off broken glass, rusted metal, debris scattered like the remnants of forgotten lives. Mara scanned the area, noting every exit, every shadow, every subtle movement. The team paused, whispered words exchanged. Mara's pulse slowed. Observation, judgment, action, each step deliberate, each choice a quiet testament to resolve. And then she saw it. A figure moving against the far wall, subtle, precise, almost imperceptible. A second intruder. No, something different. The way the person moved suggested training, professional, experienced, a trap. Mara's instincts screamed. Observation first. Decision second. Action last. She crouched lower, eyes narrowing. The intruder paused as if sensing her scrutiny. For a moment neither moved. Time stretched. The desert held its breath, and Mara realized the truth. The night was teaching her, testing her, forcing her to reconcile obedience with conscience, duty with morality. Her finger hovered near the trigger. Decision weighed heavily on her. Lives depended on it. Integrity demanded it. She exhaled slowly, letting her breath carry away doubt. Action was imminent, but she chose restraint, positioning herself to monitor, to influence, without unnecessary violence. Her thoughts returned briefly to Alex, to the boy she had saved earlier. Life was fragile, precious, and sometimes the most courageous act was not to act at all, to wait, to protect, to choose human connection over protocol. The intruder moved again, silently, disappearing into the shadows. Mara's chest rose and fell with controlled rhythm. The team remained unaware. She remained unseen. But the weight of the moment lingered, a quiet reminder of the moral stakes hidden beneath every mission. The desert stretched endlessly. Mara felt its patient acknowledgement, subtle, unseen. She had acted with integrity. She had chosen courage tempered by conscience. And in the silence, she understood something essential. Strength was not only in action, but in the decisions made quietly unseen that defined who you were long after the night ended. The team advanced, the mission pressing onward. Mara followed, silent, deliberate, present. The night had not yet revealed all its dangers, but she had learned again that sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And as the wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of sand and distant fire, Mara allowed herself a flicker of hope, fragile but real. The mission was far from over, but the choices she had made, unseen yet deliberate, were hers alone. And that, she realized, was enough, for now. Why had the shadows grown so heavy? Mara noticed it immediately, a shift in the night's rhythm, subtle but undeniable. The desert no longer whispered, it pressed, it weighed. Every footstep sounded too loud, every breath too sharp, and the darkness itself seemed to watch. She crouched low behind a fractured wall, scanning the perimeter of the compound. The air was still, unnervingly still, carrying only the faint metallic tang of tension. The team had moved ahead, but Mara lingered. Not because she was afraid, but because she could feel it, something unseen, something deliberate. Traps weren't always physical. Sometimes they were anticipation, calculation, shadows cast by lives trained to kill with precision. She could feel the pulse of danger coiling in the silence. Her thoughts flickered to Alex, the boy she had saved last night, the image of him hiding in the sand, eyes wide, trembling. She wondered where he was now, if he had made it to safety, or if fate had decided otherwise. She pressed the memory down, folding it into the armor she carried beneath her uniform. Emotions were luxuries in this line of work, but grief, even buried, was a guide, a compass. A sound so faint she almost didn't hear it made her freeze. The scrape of a boot across concrete, deliberate, careful, not random, not civilian, someone trained. Her pulse tightened. Instinct screamed, observation first, action second, survival last. Mara adjusted her scope, eyes narrowing, scanning every shadowed corner of the courtyard. A guard appeared in the distance, moving with deliberate rhythm, and she noted every detail: gait, posture, weapon position. Trained, experienced. A threat, but also human, like every soldier she had ever encountered. And yet she couldn't hesitate. The mission pressed on, and hesitation could be fatal. She remembered her father's last words before she left for the academy: strength is measured in choice, not muscle. He had believed that action alone was meaningless without conscience. Mara had carried those words for years, like a hidden map in the dark. Tonight, they guided her movements. The team breached the inner courtyard. Broken glass glinted under the faint light, metal twisted and rusted, debris scattered like remnants of lives left behind. Mara scanned the area carefully, noticing the subtle signs that indicated the presence of intruders: small footprints, disturbed dust, the faint impression of clothing brushing against stone. Then she saw him, a figure moving between the shadows, deliberate, trained, professional. Mara's breath caught. The way he moved suggested experience, more than the guards, more than the ordinary threats she had faced before. A trap? She didn't know. But she could feel the tension tightening, coiling like a snake ready to strike. Her team was unaware. Their voices were hushed, radios whispering coordinates and updates. But Mara could sense the impending danger. The desert, silent and patient, seemed to hold its breath with her. She shifted position, moving quietly, ensuring her presence remained unseen while she prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Her thoughts drifted to Alex again, reckless, untamed, brilliant. He had been gone for years, yet his absence weighed heavier now than ever. Every life lost, every mistake uncorrected, every choice unmade, it all came rushing back in waves, sharpening her focus, fortifying her resolve. She could not fail, not tonight, not here. A noise, metal against metal, faint but deliberate, pulled her attention. The intruder had noticed the team. Mara froze. Every instinct screamed danger, every training drilled caution into her bones. She could act now, neutralize the threat, protect the team, but something held her back. Observation first, decision second, action last. The figure paused as if sensing her scrutiny. The desert seemed to stretch, silence stretching across space and time. Mara's heart thrummed, steady but urgent. She realized something vital. Courage wasn't only in action. It was in patience, in restraint, in choosing the right moment. The intruder moved again, closer now, eyes scanning, weapon ready. Mara calculated every step, anticipating patterns, predicting movement. She could strike. The protocol demanded it. Obedience required it. Humanity demanded pause. Her finger rested near the trigger, controlled, deliberate. She could hear her own heartbeat, the faint pulse of the night, the soft exhalations of her team. Every detail mattered: precision, judgment, conscience. A sudden shift, another shadow, another motion, brought Mara to immediate awareness. A trap, yes, but not the kind she had expected. Mines, alarms? No, a human calculation. The intruder wasn't alone. Multiple threats, coordinated, deliberate. Her team needed her, and yet she hesitated, not out of fear but because she understood something others didn't. Victory meant more than elimination. It meant survival. It meant humanity. It meant choice. Her eyes flicked briefly to the small device in her pocket, a relic of missions past, a signal of extraction. But extraction wasn't the priority now. Morality was, life was, decision was. She moved silently, guiding the team subtly, adjusting angles, influencing paths without revealing her presence. The intruders had not yet noticed the subtle shifts she had imposed. She felt the strange exhilaration of complete control, the kind that comes not from brute force but from intellect, intuition, and conscience combined. Her mind returned to the boy she had saved. What kind of world would he inherit? Could he grow beyond this? Could he survive without being broken? Her chest tightened. She could not fix everything, but she could make choices that mattered, that protected, that guided, that taught. The intruders finally revealed themselves, emerging from the shadows with lethal precision, but Mara was ready. Not with violence, not immediately. Observation first, prediction second, action last. Every step calculated, every breath measured. Shots rang out. The suddenness of violence startled even her trained senses, but she was ready. She moved, precise, deliberate, neutralizing threats with minimal exposure. Every movement was poetry and violence, every choice infused with intent. The team responded, coordinated, trained. But Mara's interventions had tipped the scales, guiding them through chaos, through danger, through the unpredictable tide of human calculation. The courtyard was quiet once more. Shadows stretched across broken glass and debris, the faint hum of night settling like a soft exhale. Mara's chest rose and fell with controlled rhythm. She had acted decisively. She had protected. She had survived. And yet beneath the calm, a quiet reflection stirred. Strength was not in the elimination of threats. Strength was in the choices that preserved life, that maintained conscience, that honored the humanity in others even amidst violence. Her thoughts returned to Alex, to the boy, to every soul caught between obedience and morality, survival and conscience. And in that fleeting moment, Mara understood. Sometimes the bravest act was not shooting, not obeying, not surviving, but choosing what mattered most, even if the world never noticed. The wind carried whispers across the desert. Mara felt them as affirmation, as recognition, as understanding. The mission continued, shadows stretching ahead, dangers yet unseen. But she had acted with dignity. She had acted with heart, and for now that was enough. Sometimes courage doesn't roar, it whispers, it guides, it chooses. And in that choice a soldier becomes more than a weapon, she becomes human. Why did the silence feel heavier now? Mara couldn't shake it, a presence in the shadows that wasn't entirely natural. The desert had shifted. The night seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting. Every step, every whisper of wind, every faint metallic scrape carried warnings she couldn't ignore. Her team moved ahead, unaware of the subtle cues Mara had learned to read. The mission was proceeding according to plan, yet the edges of reality felt jagged, unstable. Something was off, something unseen. She crouched behind the fractured wall again, scanning the compound with the practiced intensity of a soldier trained to survive, and of a woman burdened with memory and conscience. Her mind drifted to Alex, that reckless spark gone too soon. She had carried his absence like a stone in her chest for years, and now, in these shadowed corridors of dust and ruin, she felt it press against her again. Every life she touched, every choice she made, carried the weight of what she could not fix. A faint scuff, a whisper of movement drew her gaze. The intruders or traps were closer now. She saw it, a figure slipping through the shadows, deliberate, trained, lethal. Her pulse steadied, observation first, judgment second, action last. Every instinct screamed readiness, but the human element, the weight of conscience, tempered her movements. The courtyard stretched ahead, littered with broken glass and rusted debris, ghostly in the pale moonlight. Mara's eyes scanned every corner, noting patterns, predicting movement. Her team had no idea the danger lurking, the choices she had made, the lives she had saved in silence. She carried it alone, the burden of responsibility, the weight of humanity in a world that often discarded it. A sudden noise, a metal latch, faint but deliberate, snapped her attention. The intruder had made a move. Mara adjusted her stance, the rifle steady, her finger brushing the trigger lightly. The desert seemed to hold its breath with her. She could strike, eliminate the threat, protect her team. Protocol demanded it, obedience required it. But morality whispered, wait, assess, choose. Her thoughts wandered briefly to the boy she had saved, to the frightened glance in his eyes, to the hope she had given him in the desert night. That hope was fragile, ephemeral, yet it mattered. It reminded her that courage wasn't just about action. It was about restraint, integrity, and conscience. The figure moved again, closer, the shadows shifting in unnatural rhythm. Mara's pulse throbbed, steady, controlled, but her mind raced. Every choice had consequences. Every hesitation could cost lives. Every decision was a silent act of courage. She signaled subtly to the team, guiding their path without revealing her presence. Observation first, influence second, protection last. She felt the strange exhilaration of control, the kind that comes not from brute force but from intellect, intuition, and empathy combined. The intruder revealed themselves finally, two figures trained, coordinated, lethal. Mara froze, calculating options, tracing every potential outcome in seconds. She could engage immediately, neutralize the threat, maintain the mission protocol. But she hesitated not from fear but because she understood something essential. Integrity, conscience, and life mattered as much as orders. Her finger rested near the trigger, steady, deliberate. She exhaled softly, letting the rhythm of her breath anchor her. Action was imminent but not yet. Observation first, decision second, action last. Suddenly a misstep, a clink of metal, faint but clear, alerted the intruders. Mara moved, swift, silent, neutralizing the immediate danger with precision, yet minimizing harm where possible. The team followed instinctively, unaware of the subtle guidance Mara had woven into their movement. The courtyard was quiet once more. Shadows stretched across broken debris, the faint hum of distant machinery settling into the night. Mara's chest rose and fell steady. She had acted, she had protected, she had survived. And yet beneath the calm, a quiet reflection stirred. Strength was not only in the elimination of threats. Strength was in the choices that preserved life, that maintained conscience, that honored humanity. Her mind returned to Alex, to the boy, to every life caught between obedience and morality. Mara realized something vital. Sometimes the bravest act is not in killing, not in obeying, not even in surviving, but in choosing what matters even when no one sees. The mission pressed on. Shadows stretched ahead, dangers yet unseen. Mara followed, silent, deliberate, present. She felt the desert's patient acknowledgement, a subtle nod to the resilience she carried. For now, that acknowledgement was enough. A sudden sound, a muffled scream, cut through the stillness. Mara's pulse accelerated, instincts snapping into hyper-awareness. The team had moved too close to a secondary threat, a situation that had gone unnoticed. Without hesitation, Mara shifted, engaging with precision, neutralizing danger, yet carefully preserving life where she could. Her mind raced. Every decision weighed on her, every choice felt monumental. The desert was a living entity tonight, responding to her presence, testing her limits, demanding she reconcile obedience with conscience, duty with morality. She glanced briefly at her team, faces illuminated by moonlight, unaware of the near disaster they had just avoided. Mara allowed herself a flicker of satisfaction, but not relief. Relief would come later, if ever. For now, she remained vigilant, every sense tuned, every breath deliberate. The wind shifted again, carrying a faint scent of smoke, distant fire, danger unknown. Mara's eyes hardened, resolve firming. The mission was far from over. The shadows still held secrets. But she had acted with integrity, with conscience, with human awareness. And in that she found a strange solace, a quiet affirmation that courage isn't always loud or violent. It can be silent, deliberate, moral. Sometimes, she realized, the weight of a choice is heavier than any weapon. And in carrying it, in making it, a soldier becomes more than a fighter. She becomes human. Why had the desert turned so unforgiving? Mara couldn't tell if it was the night or her own pulse that made the shadows seem alive, bending unnaturally around the edges of the compound. Every step felt heavier, every breath more deliberate. She crouched behind the low wall, eyes scanning, ears straining, senses sharpened by years of instinct and relentless training. Her team moved ahead, unaware of the subtle currents of danger. The mission was proceeding according to plan, or at least, the plan on paper, but Mara knew better. Real missions were never predictable. They were living, breathing entities that demanded adaptation, intuition, and courage that no manual could teach. A whisper of movement caught her attention. A guard, or someone else entirely, slid across the compound floor, deliberate, careful, trained. Mara's pulse steadied, controlled, but her mind raced, calculating every possible outcome. Observation first, assessment second, action last. She had learned long ago that speed without judgment was deadly. Her thoughts flickered to Alex, to the reckless energy that had defined him, now absent, a memory that pressed on her heart like a stone. Every mission carried the weight of lost lives, mistakes uncorrected, and decisions deferred. Tonight, that weight was acute, reminding her that survival was only part of the equation. Conscience mattered, morality mattered, humanity mattered. The intruder was closer now, a shadow among shadows. Mara noted every movement, posture, gait, weapon angle, experienced, dangerous, lethal, and yet human. She could see the faint tremor of doubt in their motions, the subtle hesitation that betrayed fear or uncertainty. It was a small mercy. Her finger hovered over the trigger, the rifle steady. She exhaled slowly, letting her breath center her, focusing on the rhythm of the night. Every heartbeat, every whisper of wind, every grain of sand beneath her fingertips informed her next choice. A sudden shift, a clatter of metal, faint but deliberate, snapped her attention. The intruder had detected movement. Mara adjusted instantly, neutralizing the immediate threat with precise, controlled action, minimizing risk to her team. The courtyard erupted briefly in chaos, then settled again, shadows stretching long and silent. She allowed herself a brief glance at her team, faces lit by the dim glow of moonlight, unaware of how close they had come to danger. Mara felt a pang, not of fear but of responsibility. Every life she touched, every decision she made carried the weight of consequence, and she would carry it alone as she always had. Her mind drifted to the boy she had saved earlier. She wondered if he had survived the night, if her actions had made a difference, or if the cruel randomness of war had claimed him. The thought lingered, bittersweet, a reminder that every choice mattered, even the unseen ones. The team advanced deeper into the compound, corridors narrow, shadows thick, the air tense. Mara's eyes scanned constantly, every corner a potential threat, every whisper of movement a possible trap. She moved silently, deliberately, guiding the team without revealing her presence. Observation first, influence second, protection last. And then she saw it, the main building looming dark, imposing. The target. Intelligence had suggested it would be lightly guarded, but Mara's instincts told her otherwise. The walls were fortified, entrances monitored, threats coordinated. The mission was far more dangerous than they had been led to believe. Her pulse quickened not from fear but anticipation. She had trained for every scenario, rehearsed every contingency. Yet tonight the stakes felt different, personal, immediate, necessary. She could feel it in the air, a tension that pressed against her chest like a vice. The first guard appeared in a doorway, silhouetted by faint light. Mara froze, observing. Protocol dictated engagement. Obedience demanded it, but she hesitated, letting humanity guide her. She tracked the guard's movements silently, positioning herself for maximum advantage, ready to act with precision and restraint. A subtle signal to the team, barely perceptible, redirected their approach. Mara's influence was unseen, her control quiet yet effective. She felt the strange exhilaration that came with mastery, not of weapons, but of consequence, of choice, of moral responsibility. Suddenly an alarm, a faint, intermittent buzz cut through the quiet. The intruders had detected the team. Mara's pulse surged. She moved instinctively, engaging threats with controlled precision, neutralizing danger while minimizing harm. Her mind raced, predicting movements, calculating angles, protecting lives. Every step, every decision, every breath was deliberate, infused with conscience as much as training. Her thoughts drifted briefly to Alex again, to the life that had been stolen from both of them. Every decision tonight was a way to honor memory, to reclaim agency in a world that often denied it. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the clarity that came from acting with purpose, with heart. The team responded, coordinated, trained, yet unaware of the subtle guidance Mara had provided. Shadows shifted, danger moved unpredictably, yet they survived because she had acted in silence, unseen, deliberate. The main building loomed ahead, doors sealed, corridors twisting. Mara's eyes scanned constantly, noting every detail, cracked walls, faint footprints, the subtle signs of human presence. Every inch of space was potential danger, every shadow a story. And then she heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whimper, not from the intruders, not from the guards, but from someone or something caught in the web of chaos. Mara's chest tightened. Her instincts screamed danger, but her conscience demanded action. She could not ignore it. She moved silently, tracing the sound, following instinct and morality alike. The whimper led her to a small room, half-collapsed, shadows draped across broken furniture. Inside, a figure crouched, trembling. A child or younger than she had expected, eyes wide with fear. Mara's chest tightened further, grief and empathy mingling with the need for action. She signaled the team to advance cautiously, yet her focus remained on the child. Observation first, protection second, action last. She could not fail here, she would not. The intruders were aware now, approaching, moving with lethal precision. Mara's finger brushed the trigger, yet she hesitated. Human life, moral responsibility, the stakes beyond mere orders, all weighed heavily. She acted with precision, not violence, guiding the child to safety while minimizing risk to her team. The courtyard erupted briefly as the intruders engaged. Mara moved with controlled urgency, neutralizing threats with minimal exposure, yet always mindful of conscience. Every movement, every decision, every breath was deliberate, informed by experience, empathy, and moral clarity. When the dust settled, the team regrouped, unaware of the lives saved silently, of the moral choices that had guided every action. Mara allowed herself a brief exhale, the tension in her chest easing just slightly. She had acted, she had protected, she had survived, and yet the night was far from over. Her mind lingered on Alex, the boy, and the countless others whose fates were shaped by decisions made in silence, unseen, deliberate. Mara understood something vital. Courage wasn't always visible. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was moral. Sometimes it was a choice that no one would ever know, yet one that defined who she truly was. The wind carried whispers across the desert, faint and patient. Mara felt them as acknowledgement, subtle, unseen. She had acted with heart, with dignity, and for now that was enough. Sometimes, she realized, the bravest act is not in obedience, not in action, not in survival, but in making the right choice, even when the world cannot witness it. Why did the shadows feel heavier here in the heart of the compound? Mara couldn't say. It wasn't just the darkness, the twisted corridors, or the faint smell of burned metal. It was anticipation. The kind that pressed into your chest, coiling in your lungs, tightening your jaw. Something was coming, something she couldn't yet see, but she could feel it as palpably as the weight of her rifle in her hands. Her team moved cautiously ahead, unaware of the subtle danger weaving itself around them. Mara's eyes flicked constantly, tracking shadows, listening for the faintest sound, a whispered movement, a misstep, a breath that didn't belong. Observation first, decision second, action last. Every instinct she had honed over years of training pulsed through her. She remembered Alex again, that reckless, brilliant boy who had loved chaos and fire, gone before the world had fully understood him. She had carried his absence like a stone in her chest for years. Tonight, that weight was sharper, pressing her toward choices that mattered, choices that could protect, guide, or destroy. A subtle shift in the air drew her attention. Movement, fast, precise, practiced. Intruders, well-trained, coordinated. Her pulse tightened, steady and controlled. The team was moving into the open, exposed. She had seconds to intervene. Mara's mind raced. Protocol demanded elimination. Obedience required it. But humanity whispered restraint. The lives of her team, the child she had saved, the unknown lives in this compound, all depended on her judgment. Every breath, every heartbeat, every microsecond carried consequence. She moved silently, positioning herself between threat and team, guiding movements, redirecting focus, influencing outcomes without exposing herself unnecessarily. Her skill was a quiet force, invisible but decisive. Then the chaos erupted. Shouts, gunfire, clashing metal. The sound pierced the night like a jagged scream. Mara's focus sharpened, instincts taking over. She moved with precision, neutralizing threats but always with care, minimizing unnecessary violence. Every shot, every maneuver, every decision was deliberate, informed by conscience as well as training. Amid the chaos, she saw him again, the figure she had been tracking since the courtyard, a trained operative, precise, deliberate, lethal. But there was hesitation in the way he moved, a subtle uncertainty. Mara recognized it instantly. Human error, the faintest crack in perfection, a chance. A window she could exploit to protect her team, to act with purpose rather than protocol. Her finger hovered near the trigger, every muscle coiled, every breath controlled, every calculation precise. And then she acted, not with blind force but with judgment. She disabled the operative, subduing the threat without unnecessary cruelty, guiding the outcome towards survival rather than destruction. The team responded instinctively, yet they didn't realize the magnitude of her interventions. Mara remained unseen, a silent guardian navigating chaos with moral clarity. The courtyard, once fractured and ominous, began to quiet as threats were neutralized, yet tension remained thick in the air. Mara allowed herself a moment to breathe, to process the decision she had made. She thought of Alex, of the boy, of every life touched by choices that went unseen. She understood something fundamental. Courage was not just in survival, not just in obedience, not just in action. Courage was moral, quiet, deliberate, often invisible to the world. She moved forward again, deeper into the compound, guiding her team through corridors fraught with danger. Every step was careful, every glance calculated. The main objective loomed closer, an interior room where intelligence suggested the target awaited. Mara's pulse thrummed with anticipation, not fear but moral gravity. A soft sound, a whimper, cut through the tension. Mara froze. Her instincts screamed danger, yet her conscience demanded attention. She moved quickly, locating a hidden figure, another child, trapped, frightened, eyes wide with terror. The weight in Mara's chest deepened. She could not abandon them. She would not. She signaled the team subtly, redirecting their path while she approached the child. Observation first, protection second, action last. She guided the child silently, carefully, blending urgency with caution. Each decision was moral, deliberate, critical. Failure was not an option. The intruders, realizing the shift, intensified efforts. Shots rang out again, closer now, chaos erupting like a living entity. Mara responded instantly, precision and judgment intertwined. Every action was a choice. Every choice had consequence. She could feel the moral weight of every decision pressing against her heart, but she moved forward with resolve. Her mind flickered to Alex again. How easily life could be snatched away, how easily chaos could reign. Every moment tonight was redemption, every choice an act of conscience. She realized that her mission was no longer just about orders, protocols, or survival. It was about integrity, about protecting what little humanity remained in a world built on violence. The team reached the interior room. The target was present, more dangerous than anticipated, yet Mara's preparation and moral clarity allowed her to anticipate moves, neutralize threats, and guide the outcome with precision. She acted not with vengeance, not with blind aggression, but with strategic, conscientious force. The room fell silent. Shadows stretched across shattered furniture, scattered debris, and faint traces of fire. Mara's chest rose and fell steadily. She had acted, she had protected, she had survived, and yet the emotional weight pressed on her, heavier than any weapon she carried. She thought of the boy, the children, the team, and the countless lives that had intersected with hers tonight. Every decision she had made, every act of restraint, every silent intervention had mattered. And in that she found a fleeting, fragile peace. The wind shifted again, carrying distant smoke, subtle scents of the desert night, evidence of chaos and survival intertwined. Mara realized something profound. Courage wasn't loud. It wasn't always visible. Sometimes it was quiet, deliberate, moral. Sometimes it was invisible, yet carried the weight of the world in its consequences. She allowed herself a brief moment to exhale, to acknowledge the quiet victories that no one else would ever know. The mission was nearing its conclusion, yet its lessons would linger. Mara understood that her path was defined not by orders or protocol, but by conscience, by moral choice, by the silent determination to act with integrity even when no one watched. Sometimes, she realized, survival was not enough. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The night remained tense, yet in that quiet Mara felt an affirmation from the desert, a recognition of her choices, her courage, her humanity. The shadows receded slightly, giving way to faint light. The mission was not yet over, but the moral victories, the lives saved, the choices made with heart, would endure. Mara's eyes hardened, resolve firm. The final confrontation awaited, but she carried with her the quiet understanding that strength was moral, courage was choice, and humanity could persist even in the darkest hours. Why did the silence feel so absolute now? Mara couldn't say. The compound shadows were heavy, oppressive, and yet calm, almost expectant. Every step she took echoed in the empty corridors, but the echoes didn't feel like sound. They felt like judgment. Every breath was a choice. Every heartbeat carried consequence. Her team had reached the inner sanctum, the room that intelligence had marked as the primary objective. Mara's eyes swept over the area, noting debris, faint bloodstains, scattered papers, and the subtle signs of life moving carefully, deliberately. The target was inside, alive, waiting, calculated, dangerous. Her pulse thrummed, steady, controlled, but beneath it lay a tension sharper than any blade she had ever held. Observation first, assessment second, action last. She had lived by these principles for years, yet tonight, every choice carried more than protocol. It carried morality, conscience, and the weight of lives she could not replace. A movement, a subtle shift, almost imperceptible, caught her attention. The target had noticed them. Mara froze. Her finger hovered near the trigger, every muscle coiled, every breath measured, every calculation precise. The team prepared to breach, but Mara's instincts screamed caution. Not every threat could be eliminated by force alone. Human life, she reminded herself, was fragile, and sometimes restraint was more courageous than aggression. She moved first, silent, deliberate, guiding the team through unseen paths, subtle interventions shaping outcomes without unnecessary violence. Every choice was weighted with consequence. Every movement a testament to discipline and conscience combined. The target emerged, weapon drawn, intent clear. Mara's eyes met his, and in that moment time stretched, observation first, judgment second, action last. She could end him now, protocol demanded it, obedience required it, but morality whispered restraint. The room seemed to hold its breath. Shadows pressed close, stretching across shattered furniture and broken glass. Mara's chest rose and fell steadily. She could feel the lives around her hinging on this moment. Her team, the children she had saved, the countless unknowns who would feel the ripple of her decisions. Her finger tightened on the trigger, but she did not fire. Instead, she moved with precision, disarming the target without unnecessary violence, neutralizing danger while preserving life. The operative collapsed, stunned but alive. The moral choice had been made. Integrity had won where brute force might have prevailed. The team, now fully aware of the proximity to the final objective, moved in coordinated silence. Mara guided them through remaining corridors, each step deliberate, every shadow assessed, every potential threat neutralized with care. Her focus never wavered. Her heart carried the weight of years, of loss, of memory, of conscience, and yet her actions remained precise, deliberate, moral. Finally, they reached the rooftop, the extraction point. The night stretched infinitely, the desert wind whipping past, carrying the faint scent of smoke, dust, and life continuing beyond their mission. Mara stood at the edge, surveying the horizon. For a moment she allowed herself a flicker of relief, but relief was fleeting. The night had lessons yet to impart. Her thoughts drifted to Alex, to the reckless brilliance gone too soon, to the boy she had saved, to the lives she had touched silently, invisibly. Every decision she had made tonight, every moral choice, every act of restraint carried weight. They would not be visible to her team, not recorded in reports, not celebrated, but they existed, and that was enough. The wind shifted again. Mara felt it as a whisper of acknowledgement, subtle but unmistakable. Courage, she realized, was not always visible. Morality was not always applauded. Strength was not always measured by force. Sometimes it existed quietly, deliberately, invisibly, and yet it defined you far more than any medal or commendation ever could. She allowed herself a brief moment to breathe, to reflect. The mission was complete. Lives had been saved. The objective had been secured. And yet the true victory lay in the choices she had made, choices that honored humanity amidst violence, conscience amidst chaos, dignity amidst orders. Her eyes swept across the horizon again. The desert was vast, silent, patient, indifferent to the struggles of those who passed through it. And yet it had witnessed courage. It had felt restraint. It had seen morality act in the shadows where no one else could. Mara thought of the boy one last time, hoping he would survive, hoping he would grow beyond this night, beyond the violence, beyond the choices forced upon him by circumstance. She could not protect everyone, could not undo every wrong, but she had acted where she could. That, she realized, was enough. The team prepared for extraction. Mara lingered a moment longer, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. The night had been harsh, the mission unforgiving, yet she felt a quiet affirmation. Courage had been exercised. Morality had been preserved. Humanity had endured. And in that quiet, Mara understood something essential. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. She descended to the waiting transport, the wind whipping past, carrying the sounds of desert night and the faint echoes of life continuing beyond their mission. Her team moved with her, unaware of the moral victories woven into their success, yet each step carried the silent weight of choice. As the transport lifted off, the desert stretched beneath them, vast and unbroken. Mara's eyes closed briefly, allowing herself the faintest exhale. She had acted with integrity. She had acted with heart. She had survived. And that survival, tempered by conscience and moral choice, was more valuable than any report, any commendation, any recognition could ever convey. The night settled, shadows stretching long and patient. Mara felt the quiet affirmation of her decisions, a subtle resonance that would stay with her long after the mission ended. The world was unchanged, the desert indifferent, yet she had acted where she could, chosen where she could, preserved where she could. And in that she found the essence of courage, the measure of strength, and the enduring weight of humanity. Sometimes, she reflected, the bravest act is invisible. It is quiet, it is deliberate, it is moral, and it endures even when the world cannot see it. Mara exhaled again, steady, controlled. The wind carried whispers across the desert, faint, patient, eternal. She allowed herself a final moment of reflection. The mission was over, but the choices, the conscience, the integrity, the morality remained. They were hers. They had been exercised, and they would endure silently, invisibly, profoundly. As the transport disappeared into the horizon, the desert stretched endlessly beneath, indifferent yet bearing witness. Mara's gaze lingered one last time. The night had been hard, the decisions impossible, the cost heavy, and yet she survived, morally intact, resolute, human. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And in that quiet act, Mara found redemption, purpose, and the fragile, unspoken affirmation that even in war, humanity could endure.